Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us. My name's James. I'm from Rose in the Ocean, one of the facilitators involved in the co-design of the St Vincent's Health Safe Haven Cafe. And thank you for joining us today to have a look at, particularly the feedback loop one from the process. Before we start, as we would do with all our programs, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which the St Vincent's Hospital Sydney resides today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And in doing so, also like to acknowledge those with lived experience and who have considered ending your life, or those that have attempted to do so. And we acknowledge your courage and tenacity to carry and move through that immense pain. Acknowledge also those who care for loved ones through suicidal crisis, those who may be bereaved through suicide, and of course, those that we've lost to suicide and those who may be struggling with life today. Three really important things that I always live by and recognise is that everybody's lived experience is unique, everybody's lived experience is valuable, and everyone's lived experience can make a difference. So I'm going to share the screen because I've got a couple of things I want to get through, and thank you for those that are joining us either live or getting a chance to watch this webinar. So let's just go through this. In particular, I just want to walk through where we're up to, what's happened so far. I had the orientation webinar, information packs been sent out, the guidance document from the New South Wales Ministry of Health, and conversations with the lived experience individuals of the groups of three of those. Also, we've had the health professional conversations, those focus conversations, and a couple of sessions with the lived experience group, in particular, looking at some of the co-design of the Safe Haven. So the purpose of today and all this feedback loop is to provide a little bit more context of the co-design process. Make sure that we've captured what has been shared during the co-design round one and gather a kind of broader views and experiences from you and all the group. Certainly have a look at what might be missing from the conversation so far, and then following up, prepare for round two of the co-design process. And we can see that little diagram there on the left-hand side in particular, that circle, the feedback loop one, the blue, that's where we're up to today. I will be running a similar session with the feedback loop from the health professionals later on today. And as we can see, a number of processes over a number of weeks that we'll go through. So let's go right into the program now. And have a look at where and what we've got up to in terms of the perspectives. We spoke to people who, a diverse range of perspectives from lived experience, people who've had either suicidal thoughts, an attempt at suicide, or might be currently caring for someone. So that's the perspectives that we've captured. So the process that we followed for those that were a part of it and or those that weren't, we took them through walking what the emotions and feelings might have been for people seeking help through the emergency department or supporting someone to do so. And getting people to kind of really look into their or tap into their feelings allows us to explore the reasons as to why they felt that way, and to start to identify what were some of those unmet needs that were underneath these feelings and experiences, and that the local safe haven could ideally meet in terms of that design. We took the individuals or the groups through a set of touch points or phases, in particular the finding, what was that like, the finding of the ED, the initial and or arrival process and the assessment or that triage, the waiting, the treatment itself or the management, and the departure or the leaving or the exit from the ED as well. So the next couple of slides we're going to look at is some of the key points of discussion and the feedback that for this phase of the co-design process. And everything that was shared in the conversation has been captured with most common themes shared. So let's go through this. So this is about understanding experience. Let's have a quick whip. I won't read all of them, but you get a great kind of a feeling of what it looks like, in particular the Wordle there with all the words shown on the left-hand side around what you were feeling when we looked at the finding part. This information will be provided at the end of the survey as well, or sorry, at the end of this presentation at the survey. So if you missed some of this as we're flicking through, by all means go through there and have a look a little bit more in detail. So let's go through some of these things that popped out. What were you feeling? A sense of confusion, stunned, blame, terror, feeling frightened, sidelined, numb, this idea of fear, scared, shook up and shock. And then we captured some of the conversations and direct quotes around why were you feeling this way in this finding stage. And we can see some of those there. The police that escalated the situation had so many people descend on us. I didn't know what to do when I was wanting to end my life and didn't know ED was an option. If I had an option like a safe space or even knew about the ED, it could have prevented me doing what I did. And I was told I couldn't come with my daughter to ED as I had to be asked and given permission. So let's step through, and some great quotes there. I thank again the team that have been involved in some of this stuff. The next phase that we walked through, or touch point, was this idea of the arrival, initial assessment, and the feelings, as we can see there, around feeling desperate, embarrassed, confused, alarmed, nervous, ashamed, felt like a loser, and this sense of terror. And we explored and touched this idea of why were you feeling this way? And some of the direct quotes, as we can see there, and I won't read them all out, but they weren't taking me seriously. I blame myself for not screaming louder. I couldn't go straight away as I was nervous about what I would say when I got there. And I found it difficult to articulate. I felt I was dobbing myself in. Some really powerful quotes. Thank you. The waiting period and that time frame within the emergency department gave lived experience individuals who gave us the feedback a sense of being watched, a sense of despair, shock, fear, scared, resigned, and numbing. And again, some of the direct quotes as to why you were feeling this way. I had no idea what was happening in my body. They don't see you for ages. You are in so much pain and in crisis. No waiting for me as I went straight in. The urgency made me more scared. Once in a bed, they couldn't get the psychiatric team to see me until late evening that day. They then pushed me into the holding pattern. The whole thing was quite numbing and an out-of-body experience. And sitting in ED and waiting for about 1.5 hours, it was total fear, not knowing if a loved one was not going to live or not. The triage or treatment, the treatment management phase that we walked through, this sense of feeling we can see there, powerless, hopeless, overwhelmed, helpless, regret, invisible, distrusting, and some of those other comments in there. And the feelings as to why was this. Clinicians were like my family for support. And what you will see, there are some positive feelings as well within this treatment. It's not all a negative impact. I spoke to two psychiatrists in what looked like a prison interrogation room. I felt listened to and not minimalised. Treatment was perfunctory. So many decisions they needed me to make. Amazing support and treatment makes me feel responsible to not attempt again. There was no consistency. This made me feel a lack of trust as they didn't include me. So the final phase or touch point that we walk through is the departure, the leaving of the ED. And what were you feeling? A sense of good spirits. I felt heard, although I felt isolated. A burden, unsafe, sad, worthless. It was my fault. Regret, vulnerable, small, alone. And the reasons for some of those feelings. Staff were great. I felt cared for and trusted them. So vulnerable that ED wasn't safe either. Just wanted somewhere safe. I felt like I was a burden and I wasn't bad enough. The Wayback Service never gave up because I was worse after I left. And it can be so scary to go back home. A couple other comments there. So again, thank you for the group that shared that incredibly insightful information. So in terms of a general kind of approach to some of the comments that came through, we can see on the screen there, ED doesn't take mental health as seriously as physical issues. It feels like you don't matter. It confirms that it doesn't matter if you live or not. Too much focus on death prevention and not enough on alleviation of suffering. And there's also no follow-up. This is a big thing. And a couple other comments there. So those that never accessed or would never consider do so, and why didn't you access the emergency department? Some comments that came up. It didn't want to burden ED or distract resources. The poor experience in ED previously due to physical illness and made the decision to never attend ED. And when the GP told my brother something is wrong with you, go to the ED, I think he got very panicked and very scared. So again, some great feedback there from individuals that went through that process. So then we tapped into some of the conversations around what needs do we need to have in our safe haven and what needs to be met. Let's have a look at some of these in terms of different areas. In particular, practical and physical needs, a great list of things, this idea of being welcoming in a comfortable space, adequate staffing to ensure guest is looked after in an appropriate and timely manner. Staff in casual dress, sedation or medication is available if required. I won't go through them all, but some great comments there. The idea of community transport being available, and peer workers each have a phone and all can provide the number. Further needs in terms of this area around the connection, being able to greet guests as they arrive, this sense to feel welcome, peer support from people with lived experience, a warm handover to onward referral service, a continuity of care, peer workers feel like a friend, a safety and a safety net, establish pathways with St Vincent's Hospital for guests to seamlessly access clinical care. That carers are listened to and heard, those that bring or support their loved ones. To be taken seriously, a companionship from a stranger, someone to care about me, someone to sit with me, aftercare and follow-up, support, someone to calm you down, making sure that our cultural needs are met. Ask people how they'd like to be treated and what their pronouns are or they would prefer. Sense of trauma-informed care as well. So some, again, great ideas in terms of the needs for connection. In terms of the information that could be available for and or resources for guests, a sense of some diagnosis, follow-up appointments, how to access mental health services, what the safe haven can and cannot do or offer, a bit of an idea around private health cover and nuances of how it works within the mental health. That came up a number of times in conversation, as well as the cost to access mental health services and a sense of what that might be, particularly when one's in suicidal crisis. It helps to understand and potentially remove a bit of that anxiety. Information being explained in easy and understandable way. Documentations and notes taken so there's continuity if and when a guest returns to the safe haven. Every guest is given a go-to information flyer on what happens next. Safe haven information and contact numbers of other services available within the area. So moving around in terms of some other stuff, in terms of the safe haven, the ethos of the safe haven is in line with the principles used during the co-design, those being non-judgmental respect, acknowledging and respecting people's feeling of grief and being supportive. Training for all staff, including peer workers, volunteers and management, and some examples of what that looks like there. And the safety and care of the safe haven team is a priority. Mental health to be seen as a parallel to physical health. Quality-free healthcare for all people. So let's look at some of the feedback from the co-designing of our safe haven from the lived experience group. In terms of the values that have been set by the Ministry of New South Wales, you can see that list there around empowerment, risk tolerant, non-judgmental, I won't go through them all, respectful, dignity, choice, person-centred. And from the group, and I know this isn't yet set in stone in terms of the exact values, but certainly having a number of these to start to whittle down to a select group is going great. So from the local co-design sessions that we had, we can see the values that have been set up around respecting identity, empowerment, sense of flexibility and adaptability, kindness, transparency, humanising, this sense of breaking down stigma, hearing and or listening, and this idea of consent. So the idea is to design a safe haven, again, just sort of looking at some of the physical, tactile things, an open space where people can mix one big living area. If we go across to the other side, there's the idea of a bathroom with a bath plus bath salts. Somewhere quiet for guests to have their own space, a warm, inviting, non-clinical, looks and feels like a home, exercise room with yoga mats, bright, aesthetically pleasing interior design. This was clear in terms of no mental health or motivational, inspirational posters on the wall. Some room or space to pace and an area for a small gym as well. So lots of ideas there, as well as a prayer room and or copy of religious text available if required. In terms of the access, what would be really helpful is this sense of or idea of free transport to and from the safe haven. The guests are greeted by someone when they arrive and turn up. Establish pathways with St Vincent's Hospital for guests to seamlessly access clinical care and people who have or present to ED to access the safe haven. Fluency between the safe haven and referral partners. Establish relationships with community mental health services for guests to tap into when they leave the safe haven. The idea of opening hours, no surprises for this. This idea is 24/7, so 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In terms of the experience, what would help with the co-design or the safe haven, an idea of set routines, breakfast, lunch and dinner, maybe some sleep therapy, some music that's available for guests, instruments to play and some suggestions around guitars, piano and or even some drums. We talked about crafternoon, maybe like an art and or music therapy. I think we talked about the sense of free, fast and reliable Wi-Fi, access to computers and phones, toilets, on-site masseuse or massage chairs for 3 minutes. Tea, coffee and snacks available. Things to do with your hands, this idea of tactile board or card games, art supplies, as suggested, musical instruments as well. That staff wear name tags so people can easily differentiate between guests and suicide prevention peer workers. And ability to access a kitchen and cook, this sense of a therapeutic activity. The support offered around ideas of short or long-term stay available, partnering with other linguistically diverse translators and communicators available, option for clinical support if desired, care planning, therapy animals, talk about dogs, cats, I think goats even came up as well. Continuity of care, each peer worker has a phone with a number they can provide, interpreter service, accommodation for homeless visitors, acknowledge that what every person's needs are different. Ask people what they need. This continual support around safe language. A low threshold service in terms of tolerance of challenging behaviour is very high, and accept or tolerate behaviour that other agencies will not. Focus on providing helpful support and easing pain over stopping you from dying. The staffing enough peer workers to enable continuity care, peer workers, all staff are adequately trained. The casual dress for staff, again, I won't go through them all, but some First Nation peer workers and match people entering the space with peer support who have similar beliefs, experiences, or backgrounds around that diversity. Trained to recognise suicidality and elevated distress, not just the normal suicidal behaviours. And staff feel able to look after their own self-care and say when they need a break. And finally, one of the other things there is staff should be prepared to handle client language or methods of suicide if they feel they need to verbalise what is on their mind. So lots of feedback there, lots of ideas, as mentioned, lots of values too that at some stage we will whittle down. But in terms of next steps for this process, we will have the health professional session 2, as it says there, with the lived experience outputs, and then another feedback loop similar to this live webinar, the opportunity for survey questions and review documents. Then will be a joint stakeholders session, and then another feedback loop to communicate the co-design outputs to local community. So thank you for joining in, those that could. Happy to answer any questions through the chat if you have any questions, but there is the webinar questionnaire feedback loop survey, as you can see on the screen there, roseintheocean.com.au/St Vincent's Hospital Safe Haven /. And this is an opportunity to provide your ideas and answer questions through the survey. So I want to thank you for your time. And I think there is a question or there's a hand up. I might just stop share there and see if I can see that question. No, I can't see the question. So, other than a comment, and thanks to Sanaya to say thanks for sharing this. So thank you for being a part of this as well. Thanks for sharing this. I just wanted to know. No, what will be the next webinar be about? The next webinar will be about the collection of comments that we've had from previous lived experience conversations as well. So thank you again. Look forward to seeing you shortly. It'd be great for those got any comments about the process to date, please put that in the survey and or share the survey around with other people who you think might add just as much value as we've added to date. Thanks for your time. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.